Shamsaradhava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karunya Ganaganatvam Shamsaradhava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karunya Ganaganatam Praptasya Kalyana Guranavasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaru Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Guranavasya Bande Guru Shri Charanaru Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Ki Vaditra Madhyam Romanchakampasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Diramajanado Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Diramajanado Jukta Savaktam Sa Niyonjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Yukta Savaka Niyonjatopi Bande Guru Shri Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Sadhana Hari Bhakta Kridvaiva Trupti Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Kridvaiva Trupti Vande Shiradhikama Bhabayarapara Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradhikama Madhura Lila Gunarupa Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Bande Guru Nikunjayuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Jayali Bhiri Jukti Apekshaniya Nikunjayuno Ratikeli Tatratidakhya Ativalabhasya Vande Gura Shri Charanarvindam Tatratidakhya Ativalabhasya Sakshadharitvena Samasta Shashre Ruktastathava Vataiva Sadhavi Sakyadharitvena Ruktastathava Vataiva Into Prabodja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Sya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasada Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stubam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Dayam Subham Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinam Mine Nama Krishna Prishtaya Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Samritinam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachodine Nirvishesham Shunyavadi Pachatadi Shatadine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachodine Nirvishesham Shunyavadi Pachatadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaura Jai Vishnu Paramahansa Prabhupada Acharya Sutra Sarsi Shimad His Divine Grace of Bhojravina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Bhividi Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Guru Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhattara Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Kud Vaishnavrendi Ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauru Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottam Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gauru Hari Mavrana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopagopna Radha Kunsam Kungiri Raj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Maturdham Ki Jai The Lordship Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrind Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karishna Dev Bhagavan Ki Jai Sita Ram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ji Ki Jai Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrind Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande All glory to the Son of the Bodies All glory to the Son of the Bodies All glory to the Son of the Bodies All glories All glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Hari Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Pralad Lad Daine वृक्षः शिलाटङ्का नखालाय शिलाटङ्का इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह इतो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह आहे नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह बाहे नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह बाहे नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह नरसिंहमदे शरणं प्रपदे नरसिंहमदे शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नाथाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु केशवदीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलवरे प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय
प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद
निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
निताय गौर हरि
हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल। जय नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। जय राधा नीड़ा माधव।
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। Vrindayai tulasi devai priyayai Krishna satya Vishnu bhakti prade devi satavataye namaha. Vrindayai tulasi devai priyayai Krishna satya Vishnu bhakti prade devi satavataye namaha. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi ki jai.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Hey Abhilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Hey Abhilasi
Jito Mara Sharana Loy Tara Vancha Purana Hoy
Tomar Sharanana Tara Bancha Purna
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavan Vasi
Kari Paratale Vrindavanavasi
Morae Abhilash Vilas Kunj Diyo Vas
Moraya Vila Vilas Kunje Niyava
Nayane Hari Go Sada Jugal Ruparasi
Vinayane Nivasana Junadarasi
Ini Vidana Dharo Sakiranu Gata Koro
Eini Vedanagara Sakirayano Katakara
Sevadhikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayani Karani Karani Krishna dase ka ayena mora
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada jina bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada navasi.
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada jina bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada navasi.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa kani kani pranasanti pradachina pade pade.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa kani kani pranasanti pradachina pade pade.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Kani kani sapapani brahmatari kani sa kani kani pranasanti pradachina pade pade.
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
राम राम हरे हरे जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल जय तुलसी महारानी की जय
Jai. Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah. Vrindayai Tulasidevaye Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Vrindayai Tulasidevaye Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavati Emissaries of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love. Shri Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahaprabhu Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Mani Gauri. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth. This Sankirtan moment is a primary election for the humanity at large. For this praise grace the benediction name. It's the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction. connection to living beings. And thus you have hundreds, millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is no even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord on a throne on the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I'm fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy names. Will my voice choke up, and will the hairs on my body stand on the end of the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years and more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so even hundreds me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Shri Shikyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme, devoted to dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities in strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as productive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person with the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and mundane material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter.
It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting.
Every devotee
who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema.
Now let us
offer
offer
our
our
most humble obeisances unto all Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripasindabhyevacha Patitanaham Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Pada Krishna Namaste Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janma Yasya Yato Niviyad Itaratas Chatesu Avigyaswarat.
Janmadya Shetam Vayaditaratascha Tesvavigyaswara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Mujanti Suraya.
Tejo Varimridam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Tisargo Misha.
Tejo Varimrida Yata Vidimayo Jatra Tisagumrisya.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of God.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all
of
causes,
the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart of man.
the original living being.
The original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into
as one is
illusion.
bewildered by the illusory
As
representations
one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of waters in the fire, lands in the water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of the material universes,
temporarily manifested by the reaction to the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual although unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
whose eternal existence is transcendental,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaichovotra,
Dharma prujita kaitavotra,
paramo nirmatsaranam satam,
paramo nirmashranam
vedyam vastavam atra vastu,
Vedam vastavam vastu,
shivadam tapa trayon mulanam,
Shivadam tapo trayamuranam,
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Shimar Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Kim va purer Ishwaraha,
Kimva Paririshvaraha,
Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra,
Sadyo Rudya Varidya Titra,
Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat.
Kritibhi Shishushu Bhistakyana,
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all the religious activities which are material.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truths,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are full and pure in heart.
which is understandable by those who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth of the two-form miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva's maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of
by
knowledge,
this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord,
Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam,
Nigamana Kapalotalam Palam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyatam,
Sukamukara Vidadava Sangita,
pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Vibata Bhagavatam Rasamaya,
mohur ahoraska bhuvibhavukaha.
Mura Horasika Bhuvibhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit, the desired truth, Vedic literature.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Shishpadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasty.
Although its nectar and juice was already relishable for
Although
all,
this nectar and juice was so relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shrambatam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Vidyantoksti Slohya Bhadrani,
Yadyantasto Hiyavadrani,
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Vidunati Suripsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from me directly through the Bhagavad Gita
is itself righteous activity.
is a self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who's dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart,
as a best wishing friend
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotees who constantly engaged in hearing.
Nasta presu abhadresu
Nasta Preshwa Bhadrishu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttama sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Namastoke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, you would naturally develop the transcendental dormant.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
And he hears more about Krishna from Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the
he
devotee.
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastomo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
Kamalova Dayasya
cheta itaranavidam
Chaitanya Navidam.
stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata
bhagavad tattva vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away,
and these impurities are wiped
the
away.
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya siyante chasya karmani drishta eva atmanishware. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
It enables one to come at once to the stage of assumption.
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of God.
Understanding the supreme absolute true personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore,
can one understand the science of Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, verse 32. The fortunate King Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only, you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we, who are but unworthy royalty, become eligible to serve the devotee. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Saintly devotees like Sukadeva Goswami generally do not approach worldly enjoyers, especially those in royal orders. Maharaj Pratap Parudra was a follower of Lord Chaitanya, but when he wanted to see the Lord refused to see him because he was a king. For a devotee who desires to go back to Godhead, two things are strictly prohibited: worldly enjoyers and women. Therefore, devotees of the standard of Sukadeva Goswami are never interested in seeing kings. Maharaj Parikshit was, of course, a different case. He was a great devotee, although a king, and therefore Sukadeva Goswami came to see him in his last stage of life. Maharaj Parikshit, out of his devotional humility, felt himself an unworthy descendant of his great Kshatriya forefathers, although he was as great as his predecessors. The unworthy sons of the royal orders are called Kshatriya Bandhavas, as the unworthy sons of Brahmanas are called Dvijabandhus, or Brahma Bandhus. Maharaj Parikshit was greatly encouraged by the presence of Sukadeva Goswami. He felt himself sanctified by the presence of the great saint, whose presence turns any place into a place of pilgrimage. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. So, yesterday we made a little mistake, and I'll correct it right now. That is, Lord Chaitanya gifted some cloth and personal paraphernalia to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and also to King Patraparudra. So to appease the king, on the plea of Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya consented to give him some clothing from himself. As soon as King Prataparudra received that, he began to worship it in the same way that he worships a deity. So this is called Tadiyanam Samachara. Aradhananam Sarvesam Vishnu. Aradhanam Param. So we explained this yesterday when Parvati asked Lord Shiva, who's the best person to worship? He said that of all worshipable persons, worship of Lord Vishnu is the best. But even better, Tasmat Parataram Devi, even better, O Devi, or Parvati, Tadiyanam Samachara, is to worship someone or anything in relationship to the Lord. So, following this fact, King Prataparudra considered the cloth of Lord Chaitanya as worshipable, and he began to worship it. Well, also, the great saint Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who was the son of Venkata Bhatta, who was one of the chief brahmanas in Srirangam in the time of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya stayed in Srirangam for 4 months. When he first got to Srirangam and entered the temple of Ranganath, there were hundreds, maybe even thousands of brahmanas reciting wonderful prayers for the glorification of Ranganath. And Lord Chaitanya entered the presence of all those exalted devotees chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And he chanted in such a way that everyone was captivated by it. And they stopped chanting their mantras and listened to the Lord chant Hare Krishna. And Venkata Bhatta, who was one of the head priests, came up to Lord Chaitanya, paid his obeisances to him, and just glorified him like anything, and invited him to his house. And his house is in the Brahminical section of Srirangam. I visited that place several times and spoke with his descendants, Murli Bhatter, and sat in his house, in the same house, and not the exact same room where Lord Chaitanya stayed, but right next to it. And today you can visit a temple of Lord Chaitanya right across the street from that house. And that's maintained by Murli Bhatter and his family, the descendants of Venkata Bhatta. Well, he stayed in the house of Venkata Bhatta for 4 months during Chaturmasya. And during that time, he became very intimate with Venkata Bhatta, and especially his son, Gopal Bhatta. So much so that when he decided to leave, Gopal Bhatta fainted in distress, and Lord Chaitanya decided to stay a little bit longer to calm the boy, and the boy had so much love for him. And he initiated Gopal Bhatta. He was although he was just a little boy, and he instructed him to stay with his parents until they died, and when they left their bodies, he should come to Vrindavan and stay there and write books and study and teach Krishna consciousness. So, as time went on, the boy listened exactly to what Lord Chaitanya instructed him, And eventually his parents, right before they died, they instructed him also, you can go now to follow Lord Chaitanya's instruction. And you go to Vrindavan. We are all right. We're meditating completely on the Lord also. And we know where we're going to go. So, and Lord Chaitanya went to Srirangam in the year 1511, in Christian year 1511. And Venkatabhatta had two brothers. One of them was Prabodhananda Saraswati, who was also a Sri Vaishnava, but he also was a follower, became a follower of Lord Chaitanya, and it's a great Vaishnava. So, when Gopal Bhatta, when Lord Chaitanya found out that Gopal Bhatta had arrived in Vrindavan, to encourage him, he sent him different paraphernalia that belonged to the Lord. He sent him a small, like, wooden stool that he would sit on when he would chant or when he would worship deities. So then the rest of Gopal Bhatta's life, he would sit on that little, a very low table-like thing, like a seat, and he would worship his deity. And he also sent him a chadar. So when I told the story of Vishwambara Swami, he received from his grandfather a little piece of that chadar. And he had it in this picture, a framed picture of Lord Chaitanya, and a very, very special picture of Lord Chaitanya I never saw before. And he said, this is the only thing I own. And he would worship that cloth also when he was worshiping his Shalagram Shilas every morning. So, Lord Chaitanya sent his personal wooden sitting plank called a hoki, which he had used along with a pair of his undergarments and one of his upper cloths, or uttara or chadar. Having received these gifts, Gopal Bhatta was in ecstasy, and he worshipped them as the prasad or tadya of Mahaprabhu. When he would worship his deities, he would sit on that wooden plank. This piri, or wooden seat, and Mahaprabhu's clothes are still being worshipped at Radharamana Mandir. Gopal Bhatta, like Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, had no fixed residence and would spend the night in various kunjas, or forest groves. He spent his time studying the scriptures and composing various scriptures. After Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's disappearance, Gopal Bhatta Goswami felt intense separation from the Lord. To relieve his devotee, the Lord instructed Gopal Bhatta in a dream, if you want my darshan, then make a trip to Nepal. So he goes to Nepal, and he ends up on the Gandaki River. And that's where the Shalagram Shilas exist. And while he's bathing one morning in the river, he takes some water with his kamandala, or water pot, and to his surprise, there's some Shalagram Shilas in his water pot. So he thinks that was some type of accident, so he pours it back into the river and then takes some more water, and this time there are 12 Shalagram Shilas in his water pot. So it's a mysterious thing that he just decides that this is some kind of mercy that he's receiving. So he keeps those Shilas. You're not allowed to take anything, like you're not allowed to take a Govardhan Shila at Govardhan, or a Shalagram Shila. It has to be gifted to you. But because the Shilas kept coming back into his water pot, he took it as the mercy of the Lord, and he kept them, and he tied them up in a knot on his dhoti or his chadar, and took them back with him to Vrindavan, and he would worship them every day. And then one day he was praying. Some very wealthy businessman came to see him and gifted him very beautiful cloths and dresses for his Shalagram Shilas. But his Shilas were like small Shilas, and they were mostly round. So he was feeling a little, let's say, frustrated because he couldn't actually dress the deities in those cloths or those clothing. And so he was intensely praying to the Lord, oh my Lord, it would be so nice if I could have a deity of you in your transcendental form so I could dress you every day and worship you nicely. Well, after some days, when he woke up in the morning, he went to worship his Shalagram Shilas, and there were 12 of them. Those are the original 12 that he brought back from the Gandaki River in Nepal. But one of them had transformed into this beautiful deity of Krishna. It was a miracle. And when the news got out, all the Goswamis came excited to see this self-manifested Shalagram Shila deity of Krishna. And this deity is special. It has teeth, and it has some jewelry, and it has very special things about it. And Shalagram Shila it's impossible to be able to carve that rock. It's brittle in many ways. If you try and carve it, it'll just break. But here was a highly carved, very, very intimately carved, with eyes and eyelash, everything. And therefore, there was no way any human being could have made that deity. So, and that deity has been examined by experts. They don't let anyone touch the deity, but they can examine it with the priests there, and they've done that. And everyone agrees that the intricacy of that deity is such that it'd be impossible for any human being to carve Shalagram into such a form. And you can see that deity today. It's still there. It's worshipped every day in the Radharaman temple. So now, Gopal Bhatta had this amazing self-manifested Shalagram Shila deity of Lord Krishna. And although Radharani did not self-manifest next to the deity, she is worshipped every day along with the deity. But there's a little place next to the deity that's reserved for her, but you don't see the deity of Radharani. But they worship Radha and Krishna every day. And so this story about Gopal Bhatta Goswami is very special, and I was very fortunate to have his descendant Vishwambara Swami come and stay with me for 1 week, and I was able to watch him do his worship of Shalagram Shila, and plus Lord Chaitanya with the cloth of Lord Chaitanya every day. Okay, so then yesterday also we discussed a lot of the man gods in India who claim to be in Bhagavan. So I made a short list of them, about 18. There's a lot more also. I didn't get them all, but so there's Paramahansa Yogananda, so-called Paramahansa Yogananda, Mata Amritananda, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, Muktananda, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, the so-called Nityananda, Asuram Baba, Ramana Maharshi, Sad or Asad Guru, Shishi Ravi Shankar, Osho Bhagavan Rajneesh, so-called Bhagavan, Satya Sai Baba, and there's two of those, Shriti Sai Baba and Satya Sai Baba, Neem Karoli Baba, Kripalu Tripati, Aurobindo, Krishnamurti, and one of the most egregious ones, Baba Rampal, and what's this one? Oh yeah, this Baba Rampal is in jail right now for murder. You probably North Indians know about him, and he claims to be an incarnation of Kabir, who he claims is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just crazy people are. And he used to worship Lord Krishna, but then he met some follower of Kabir, and the person convinced him that all the traditional deities, Narayana, Krishna, Ram, it's all nonsense. Kabir is God. So anyway, this is the confusion in India. And of course, he's a murderer on top of all that. So, this is due to ignorance. Worshipping these so-called incarnations of God. And Prabhupada explains this in depth in the Renunciation Through Wisdom. He says, that the pious and intelligent person thinks that the sufferings inflicted upon him due to his previous sinful activities are only slight because of the Lord's mercy, and that by his mercy all suffering can be relieved in a moment. As Lord Brahma states in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8, Tate nukampam susamiksamano mujana evatman krita vipakam hridvak vapubir vidadam namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadayabak. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So within their hearts, the broad-minded devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord, are informed of the Lord's orders and the workings of the material nature. They are also aware that the fully independent Supreme Lord, who is eternally engaged in transcendental activities, chooses a particular land in which to unfold his earthly pastimes, and that this designated country is Bharatvarsha, or India. Therefore, all Indians should execute the Supreme Lord's commands. As Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in his Chaitanya Charitamrita 9:41, Bharata Bhumite Haila Manushya Janmayar Janmasarta Karikara Para Upakar. One who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. So you see, work for the benefit of all other people, that's basically para upakar. It is indeed true that Indians are especially able to benefit others worldwide. But if the Indians do not meet this responsibility and instead get enticed and bedazzled by the illusory energy as it is manifest in the West in such variegated forms, then they will become known as misers or kripanas and end their lives in disgrace. The sun is not visible at night because of the rotation of the earth, yet the sun is very much present in the sky, and the entire solar system is working under its influence. Similarly, the light of India's knowledge, contained in the sublime philosophy of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Vedanta Sutra, the Puranas, and the Gita, or Bhagavad Gita, and their corollaries, is certainly available, but by divine will it is temporarily beyond our view due to the influence of ignorance and passion. Of course, by the Lord's will and by the mercy of his pure devotee, this knowledge will again spread everywhere. So Prabhupada is writing this in the 1950s, before he came to America. You see? So he says, Lord Chaitanya has made this prophecy, Pritivite Achayata, Nagaradigrama, Sarvatma Pachur Haibimuranama. My holy name will be propagated in every town and village of this globe. So this was a prediction Lord Chaitanya made over 500 years ago. But up until Prabhupada came to the United States, it seemed impossible. And even though 3 of his godbrothers tried to spread Krishna consciousness in Europe, all of them were failures. So, and Prabhupada, however, is showing that even though some of the best disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur failed, he was still convinced that it's possible. This prediction will very easily come true, for a pure devotee of the Lord can inundate the world with the tidal waves of love of Godhead, the religion preached by Lord Chaitanya. Everything is possible if the Lord desires. And thus, if the Lord desires, everyone can develop a loving mood of surrender to Him. Indians must fearlessly preach the glories of the Lord for far and wide. One who surrenders to the Supreme Lord Narayana can easily face all dangers in the effort to propagate his message. Wow, that's exactly what Prabhupada did. He was able to face all kinds of dangers, heart attacks, crazy people trying to kill him in New York City, the drug addict trying to kill him, again, heart attack in New York, and then some of his disciples turning against him, trying and outing him to the immigration authorities so he couldn't get a visa to come back to the United States. So many things happened. I mean, there's so many things that were very difficult for Prabhupada to deal with. I don't want to go through the whole list. It would be a list longer than a number of incarnations of things that the devotees did. Some devotees who were maybe immature at that time, to stop him. And then what his godbrothers did also to stop him from succeeding. But he says, one who surrenders to the Supreme Lord Narayana can easily face all dangers in the effort to propagate his message. As said in the Srimad Bhagavatam 6:17-28, Narayana parasarve nakutaschana bhivati swarga pavarga narakesu apitu yartadarsinaha. Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. It's a beautiful verse. And it explains how Prabhupada was able to tolerate all these obstacles to spreading the movement. Also, his initial translation of the entire Bhagavad Gita was stolen and never given back. His original typewriter was stolen. He had to rewrite the entire Bhagavad Gita. He had to go through so much difficulty. When knowledge of the Absolute Truth, which is on the platform of pure goodness, is suppressed by the rampant influence of ignorance and passion, the sages and self-realized souls withdraw to a solitary place of worship and concentrate solely on elevating themselves spiritually. They also greatly benefit the few disciples who stay with them and serve them. But if the Lord desires, then these sages and yogis come forward to benefit the world through missionary activities. For the ultimate good of the world, saintly kings like Janaka, Yudhisthira, and Kartavirya. Now, this Kartavirya, I think he's referring to Parasuram. I don't think he's referring to Kartavirya Arjuna, who killed his father. What was the father of Parasuram? Janmadagni. Yeah, I think he's referring to Parasuram. Anyway, we have to double check that. and Kartavirya take up the burden of managing world affairs. So in other words, you have to have a saintly king that manages, or that is the leader of society, and protect the devotees so they can preach unhindered. All the pastimes of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world are eternal. His earthly pastimes are similarly transcendental and eternal. As the Chaitanya Bhagavat states, even at this very moment, Lord Gauranga is enacting his eternal transcendental pastimes, but only the most fortunate souls can see them. When the sun sets, it goes out of our sight, but it continues to shine somewhere on this globe. Similarly, when the Lord winds up his earthly pastimes, he continues to manifest them in one or more of the uncountable millions of planets in the universe. As Lord Brahma declares in the Brahma Samhita 539, Ramadi Murti Sukalaniyan Me Natistan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pamanyo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. So basically he's saying that, okay, Lord Chaitanya wound up his pastimes on this earth planet, but he's continuing them on other planets in the universe. And actually, when a devotee becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, when he dies, he doesn't go back to Godhead. He goes to where the Lord is continuing his pastimes, either Lord Krishna or Lord Chaitanya. And then when the Lord finishes in that other place, then he takes them back to Godhead. So the Lord right now is conducting his pastimes on other planets in this universe and other universes. So he says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna, and the different avatars in the world in the form of Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. The cycle of 4 yugas, or millenniums, namely Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, go around 1,000 times in one day of Lord Brahma. The Bhagavad Gita 8.17 confirms this. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharyat brahmano vidu. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. According to the Vedic calculations, one day of Brahma sees the coming and going of 14 manus. Therefore, each manu lives for 71 cycles of the 4 millenniums. At present, we are in the period of Vaivasvata Manu in the 28th cycle of the 4 millenniums. And it is the Kali Yuga. This Kali Yuga is very special, however, because Lord Chaitanya appears in this age in his original form and propagates the esoteric science of pure love of Godhead. All this we learn from the scriptures. We have great expectations that this science of pure love of Godhead will be propagated worldwide in the immediate future. Well, that's exactly what happened. Some years after he wrote this book, in 1965, he comes to the United States and begins the Hare Krishna movement, or the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. During the Satya Yuga, the mode of goodness is in abundance. Or one can say that when the quality of goodness increases in a person to the extent that he becomes situated in his original constitutional identity as a servant of the Lord, thus making his human life a complete success, at that time he enjoys the bliss and tranquility of the Satya Yuga. So this should be a hint to us. If we take the devotional service completely, we will, although we're living in Kali Yuga, be experiencing the peace and tranquility of Satya Yuga, the bliss and tranquility of Satya Yuga. The 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are always present in this material nature. According to the predominance of a particular mode, the yugas change from Satya to Treta to Dwapara to Kali. The jivas in Kali Yuga are predominantly in the mode of ignorance, and with the increase of this mode, the threefold material miseries expand unlimitedly. Adhyatmika, Adhibodhika, Adhidevika. Thus, people today are afflicted by a short lifespan, ill luck or bad luck, warped intelligence, lethargy, meaning laziness, disease, and many other sufferings. Still, there is no reason to despise this age, the age of Kali. For the most munificent incarnation of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya has appeared in Kali Yuga to shower his kindness upon the afflicted souls. The extent of the Supreme Lord's mercy is decidedly more generous in this age than in any other. In his play entitled Vidagdha Madhava, Srila Rupa Goswami has described Lord Chaitanya in this way. Anarpita charim chirat karunaya vatirna kalo samarpayitum unnat ojvala rasam swabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara duti kadamba sandipita sadahridaya kandare spuratu va sachinandana. May that Lord, who is known as the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, be transcendentally situated in the innermost chambers of your heart. Resplendent with the radiance of molten gold, he has descended in the age of Kali by his causeless mercy to bestow what no incarnation ever offered before, the most sublime and radiant spiritual knowledge of the mellow taste of his service. The present Kali Yuga is therefore very auspicious, for in this age one can attain the treasure of devotional service to the Lord that he himself propagated. Our hope rests fully with the Lord's surrendered devotees who are endowed with perfect knowledge of how to disseminate this transcendental science. Srila Sukadeva Goswami, after describing the evil aspects of Kali Yuga, sums up this subject toward the very end of the Srimad Bhagavatam 12:3, 51 and 52. Kaler dosa nide rajan astihi eka mahad guna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param rajet krite ya dayato vishnum treta yam yajato makai dvapare paricharyayam kalota dari kirtanat. My dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there is still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become free from the material bondage and be promoted to the transcendental kingdom. Whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dwapara Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The word Hare Kirtana used in these verses, which means singing or chanting the glories of Krishna, could very well apply to the Bhagavad Gita, the song sung by God himself. The promulgation of the Bhagavad Gita's knowledge on a worldwide scale will establish a foundation upon which the edifice of the science of love of God will be constructed. So, thanks to the devotees, Vaisheshika Prabhu, and many, many sincere devotees, over 2 million Bhagavad Gitas were distributed in the book marathon this year, which is an amazing accomplishment. Of course, there has to be follow-up, because to understand Bhagavad Gita, look, how long have you been trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu? Would you say you understand it? Yeah. It takes time, right? And time and steady hearing and discussing and chanting and preaching. Right? So distributing books is wonderful, but also the follow-up is even more wonderful. So that requires an army. An army, like the United States Army, there's about 1.5 million, 2 million soldiers. Chinese Army, there's about 30 million soldiers, right? So we need 30 million sadhus, devotees, preaching Bhagavad Gita. At present only, a small portion of the knowledge contained in the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and Upanishads is available. Wait a minute, let's see. The promulgation of Bhagavad Gita's knowledge on a worldwide scale will establish a foundation upon which the edifice of the science of love of God will be constructed. This edifice will be the repository of the sublime treasure of devotional service as taught by Lord Chaitanya in Kali Yuga, and it will serve as a shining monument to the transcendental endeavors of the Lord's pure devotees. At present only, a small portion of the knowledge contained in the Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and Upanishads is available to the general populace. Yeah, that was before the BBT was started and massive distribution of Vedic literature around the world in over 180 different languages. What is noteworthy, however, is that the essence of all Vedic knowledge is available in the Gita Upanishad, or Bhagavad, popularly known as the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna milked the cow of the Upanishads, and Arjuna drank the milk thus obtained, meaning the Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna found time to hear the Bhagavad Gita in the middle of a battlefield at Kurukshetra, then what urgent business is stopping us from hearing the Gita? In other words, if Arjuna could hear it in the middle of a battlefield, right, what's going to stop us? What's going to stop us from hearing it, right? My business, my this, my that. You know, I have to go to the soccer, take my kid to the soccer game, take my kid to learn learn internet, take my kid here, take my kid there, do this, do that. So, what urgent business is stopping us from hearing the Gita? When knowledge of the Gita spreads, everyone will easily be able to attain the platform of yoga. And as the pure devotees of the Lord become successful in their efforts to use their spiritual intelligence in the Lord's service, then the science of love of God taught by Lord Chaitanya, the most magnanimous incarnation of Godhead, will be distributed everywhere. Judging from all the symptoms, the time is now ripe. Indians should now take shelter of their saintly preceptors, the pure devotees, and unitedly propagate the glorification of Krishna via the medium of the Bhagavad Gita. In this way, the world will become prosperous and perfect. The present age has seen interest in spiritual matters. By the way, most of those Bhagavad Gitas, the 2 million plus, were distributed in India. Now you can see how blessed India is, even though it's degraded in many ways. But still, the Vedic culture is alive there by the mercy of Prabhupada. In spite of this long list of rascals that claim that they're Krishna. In this way, the world will become prosperous and perfect. That's by spreading the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. The present age has seen interest in spiritual matters markedly increase. Yoga and meditation societies have mushroomed expressly to transmit the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, but how this will be accomplished is still a question. We are confident that Lord Chaitanya's teachings on the process of loving devotional service will easily harmonize all conflicting concepts. So we'll stop right there. It goes on. This is all nectar. You can see how Prabhupada conceptualized what he was going to do before he did it, based on the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya, Prativite Achayata Nagara Digrama Sarvatma Pachur Habi Muranama. He was able to actualize the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya and the prophecy of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who said one day the white devotees on the West will join their dark devotees in Bengal and dance in ecstasy in Navadvip Dhama. That happened. That happened in 1971 and 2, when Prabhupada brought his white elephants from the West to Mayapur. And it also happened a second time when the white Russian devotees came from Russia. I think it was in 1998, 97 or 98, to Mayapur. And everyone was in ecstasy. The American, the Indian devotees, by greeting all these Russian devotees. It was a miracle. And this is exactly what Prabhupada and Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? And to summarize one last thing, Lord Yamaraj makes the following declaration. Jivana Vakti Bhagavat Guna Namadeyam. My dear servants, he's speaking to the Yamadutas, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. So that's Srimad Bhagavatam 6:329. So I pray that we all see the Vishnu Dutas, and not the Yamadutas at the moment of death. Haribol. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.